What have you done? You changed the future. You've created a time paradox.
Final Fantasy XIII-2. The third Chrono Trigger game that got lost and wound up in Final Fantasy somehow. I played through this game immediately after playing through Final Fantasy XIII. We even had a few people peek under the rock to see what was going on, which was great. We start the game 3 years after Dalamud nearly succeeds in its war against Super Australia, but colliding into it. Fang and Vanille are stuck in Crystal Jail, which saves what was once their home, but is now a resort town called New Bodom. There lives Sarah, who is an only child. You may remember her from the first game, where Vanille lied to her, she was turned into a l'Cie, and then spent most of the game sleeping until Snow and the gang showed up and saved the world. Then Snow and Sarah spoke to a space of air, and Snow nodded at it repeatedly. This is because the idiot goddess Etro plucked lightning out of time. All of it, resulting in time breaking and paradoxes to conveniently manifest only in the locations we visit. By plucking lightning out of time, it also removed her from existence and everyone's memory, despite her still being alive as Etro's chosen champion. Very reminiscent of how Heidelin speaks to us in a dream and chooses us as her champion before we wake up in a wagon.
Hey, you're finally awake.
No.
Cross the point, right?
But that has almost nothing to do with Final Fantasy XIV, you say. And you're right. There's not as much in this game that relates to 14 yet. However, the seeds are sown for a story like this one to play out in 14. For more information, feel free to check out the Final Fantasy XIV Timelines video. By setting up multiple timelines, it has left the developers of 14 open to exploring a variety of what-if scenarios, much like we got in 13-2, as we hop through different eras and see how different places develop. What was Lakeland like before the flood? Let's go visit Ronka or Gelmora. And on top of that, it would allow us to repair any inconsistencies in the timeline, which may or may not produce paradoxes that threaten to destabilize the source, or even destroy it outright. While 13-2 started off as a light-hearted adventure about an idiot girl whose sister was plucked out of existence by an idiot goddess, forcing her to run off with a boyfriend from a future to look for her sister who no longer exists, and not husband, but still really cool guy who looks like a homeless person.
I got a question for you. Who's this Snow person? Her boyfriend?
He's just this super cool guy, you know? He doesn't care about the way he looks, but that just makes him so much cooler.
Well, that's great, I guess. Maybe we should...
And he's not just kind, he's reliable too. He always means what he says, and you can totally trust his word. I mean, he's my hero. Oh, and I know you're thinking no one's perfect. I know he has his flaws, and sometimes he makes me so mad, but I love that about him too. No other guy can compare to my hero. He has this amazing body, and his face is so handsome. He's tall and broad, and he makes me feel so safe. Oh, and even though he's big and tough, he can be so adorable.
That's my Snow. You done asking?
I'm done. Yeah, thanks for all the detail.
Then there's no way she can say no to us getting married.
A good friend.
If that sounds like a mouthful, that's because it was. But the warning from the future is hardly something new. It's much how the Crystal Exarch traveled back to warn the Scions about the 8th Umbral Calamity, except instead of only having vaguely heard of the events that led to it in dusty history books, he actually lived it. This game was an interesting experience though. While for much of it, it didn't feel like a lot happened. At the same time, a lot of things did happen, but very few were simply given to you. You had to put the pieces together, to string together snippets from different times, like Charlie and his conspiracy board, to get a glimpse of the full story. Things like Alyssa, who, like some vindictive Denise Crosby, decides that she should be the one to live and that her friend should stay dead, because as far as she's concerned, that's her timeline. and she likes it that way.
Time paradox!
So she works with the madman Caius to try and foil the dastardly plot of the idiot girl, who is the not sister of the never-existed Lightning, who was plucked out of reality by the idiot goddess and went through time with her boyfriend from the future.
I don't belong here, sir. I'm supposed to be dead.
Well, Alyssa didn't feel that way, and it's people like her that made me never trust Harshaphon and gave me years of guilt and therapy. Not really. I'm more of an Azael fan. The couple gallivants through space and time until they land in Academia, a hyper-technological fortress city designed by the Proto-Fal'Cie, which were designed by Hope, who rule over humanity with an iron fist. They even have flying cars, which we were promised in the real world ages ago.
It is the year 2000. But where are the flying cars? I was promised flying cars. I don't see any flying cars. Why?
Then the story goes from lighthearted to very dour. Humanity achieves feats only seen by the Alligans in 14 and launch their very own version of Zalamut into the sky. Idiot Girl and Future Boy kill Caius, and thus also the Idiot Goddess. To add insult to injury, Sarah has a brain aneurysm triggered by seeing the future, where 13 Versus becomes Final Fantasy XV and dies.
No, not now, please. Sarah, snap out of it. No!
Which triggers a moment we've only heard about in Final Fantasy XIV. The Flood of Darkness. That's right. At the very end of Final Fantasy XIII-2, the Flood of Darkness destroys the world. The 13th is swallowed by darkness. With current events in Final Fantasy XIV, particularly now 6.2, which just landed a couple of weeks ago as of this video going live, it was surprisingly timely to be able to experience this game. And with that, I'm excited to leave you with this as Igiorum has returned from the store with cigarettes and beer, and the party can begin.
Long ago, light filled the world and all was at peace. There was light here, and it shone its warmth upon creation. The lands were green and the seas were blue. Life flourished. But then the servants of darkness came, and they bequeathed a black art unto men. When it seemed the world would be plunged into chaos, heroes appeared. For years and years we fought, but it was not enough. And when our strength was spent, our bulwarks broken, so too was the world, and held fast to the light, my mother and I among them. It shattered the balance, causing darkness to engulf the world. Darkness raged unchecked, rending the very walls of reality. The sun was driven from the sky as fleeting day yielded to endless night. The stars faded from the heavens as a pall black as pitch enveloped creation. In time, even land and sea lost their distinction. All life was transformed into monstrosities. Void sent. My world, my home, changed beyond recognition into the lightless waste. This endless darkness you call the void.